A little girl stood at a billionaire's funeral. No one knew her name, no one knew how she got in, but she wouldn't stop crying. She screamed, she pointed at the coffin, she clawed at the wood like something inside was calling to her. The family tried to remove her, security grabbed her arms, but she kept screaming. And then, the coffin moved. What happened next didn't just save a man's life, it exposed a murder plot, a family secret, and a mystery no one can explain. This is the true story of Victor Ashford. The enemies who poisoned him, the brother who tried to bury him alive, and the child who heard what no one else could. But before we continue, subscribe now, drop a comment, where are you watching from? Have you ever felt something you couldn't explain? Victor Ashford was worth $12 billion. He built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing, owned patents on cancer drugs used in 60 countries, lived in a $40 million estate in the Hamptons. But money makes enemies, and Victor had three who wanted him dead. Dr. Marcus Chen, Victor's former research partner. In 2015, they developed a gene therapy treatment together, worth $2 billion. But when the patent went through in May 2016, only Victor's name was on it. Marcus sued. He lost everything. His lab shut down. His career was destroyed. In June 2018, he sent an email to a colleague that said, "Victor stole my life. One day I'll make him pay." No one took it seriously until October 12th. Natalie Graves was an investigative reporter. In August 2020, she published a story claiming Victor falsified drug trial data. 4,000 patients suffered because of it. Victor's lawyers buried her. Lawsuits, gag orders, settlements. She lost her job, her reputation, everything. In a phone call months later, she told a friend, "If I ever get proof, I'll destroy him." She never got her proof. Or so everyone thought. Daniel Ashford, Victor's younger brother. He worked at the company for 20 years, expected to inherit everything. But in September 2022, Victor changed his will. He cut Daniel out completely. Instead, he left the entire empire to his 8-year-old daughter, Sophie. Daniel didn't take it well. A former assistant said he told her, "Victor thinks he's untouchable, but everyone dies." No one believed he meant it, until 3 days ago, a Thursday afternoon. Victor was in his office at Ashford Tower, 22nd floor, door locked from the inside. He was on a video call with his legal team when it happened. At 2:47 p.m., he collapsed. His assistant heard a thud. She knocked. No answer. Security broke down the door, and Victor was lying on the floor. His eyes were open. He wasn't breathing. The medics arrived in 11 minutes. They pronounced him dead at the scene. But here's where it gets strange. The family refused an autopsy. Daniel Ashford, Victor's brother, told the doctors, "No investigation, no media, private burial only," and the hospital agreed. Why? Because Daniel was now in control of the company. He had the money, the lawyers, the power, and he wanted Victor on the ground, fast. Within 24 hours, Victor's body was embalmed. Within 48, the funeral was scheduled. No autopsy, no toxicology report, no questions asked, just a quiet private ceremony at the family estate. 2 days after his death, everything was arranged, everything was perfect, except for one thing. A little girl, who wouldn't stop crying. Who was she? How did she get into a private funeral? And why? Did she know something no one else did? Stay with us. Let's go back. 47 minutes before Victor collapsed. He was alone in his office, the door locked and the security cameras running. He poured himself a glass of water from the bottle on his desk. The same bottle he drank from every day, purified, sealed, delivered fresh that morning by his personal assistant. But this time, something was different. Toxicology experts later identified traces of tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin found in pufferfish. Odorless, tasteless, nearly undetectable. In small doses, it mimics death. It slows the heart to a near stop, stops breathing, and paralyzes the body completely. But the victim, still conscious, still aware, trapped inside their own body. And here's the terrifying part. It can fool even trained doctors. No pulse, no breath, pupils fixed, dead, but not dead. At 2:30 p.m., Victor felt the first symptoms, tingling in his fingers, dizziness. He stood up, stumbled. By 2:45, his vision blurred. At 2:47, he collapsed. His assistant, Jennifer Torres, heard the thud from outside. She knocked. "Mr. Ashford, are you okay?" There was no answer. She called security. They broke down the door at 2:52 p.m. Victor was on the floor, his eyes open, staring at the ceiling, not moving, not breathing. One of the guards checked his pulse. Nothing. They called 911. The paramedics arrived at 3:03 p.m. They tried everything: CPR, defibrillator, adrenaline shots. Nothing worked. At 3:17 p.m., the lead medic made the call. Time of death: 3:17 p.m. Victor Ashford was pronounced dead, but inside his body, his brain was still alive. He could hear everything, feel everything. He just couldn't move. The body was taken to Manhattan General Hospital, standard procedure. But when the hospital administrator asked about an autopsy, Daniel Ashford stepped in. "No autopsy. Family wishes. We're taking him home." The doctor hesitated. "Sir, in cases of sudden death, we typically—" I said no. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He had the family lawyers on speed dial, a dozen of them. And the hospital, they backed down. No autopsy, no investigation. Victor's body was released at 6 p.m. that same day. But here's what no one knew. Daniel had been waiting for this. He'd already contacted a private mortician, already arranged the embalming, already scheduled the funeral. Everything moved fast, too fast. By 8 p.m., less than 5 hours after Victor's death, his body was embalmed. Daniel made sure it happened before anyone could ask questions. A day after Victor's collapse, the funeral was set. Private ceremony, family estate, no media, no public announcement, just close family and a few business associates. Daniel told the staff, Victor wanted it this way, quiet, dignified, no spectacle, but that wasn't true. Victor had a will, explicit instructions for his funeral, a public memorial, donations to cancer research. Daniel ignored all of it, because Daniel needed Victor in the ground, before anyone discovered the truth. The day of the funeral. The Ashford estate sat on 20 acres in the Hamptons, marble columns, manicured gardens, a private chapel built in 1904. By 1:30 p.m., guests began arriving. Businessmen in black suits, lawyers, shareholders, a few distant relatives. Victor's widow, Elena Ashford, wore a black veil. Her daughter, Sophie, clung to her side. Daniel greeted everyone at the door, calm and composed, playing the grieving brother perfectly. The coffin sat at the front of the chapel, mahogany, gold handles, polished to a mirror shine, closed. Daniel insisted it stay closed, out of respect, he said. But respect had nothing to do with it. Inside that coffin, Victor Ashford was still alive. He couldn't move, he couldn't scream, but he could hear. The organ music, the footsteps, the voices. He was trapped, paralyzed, buried alive in his own body. And no one knew. No one, except one person, a little girl, who was about to walk into that chapel and change everything. No one knows how she got there. No one saw her arrive. But 2 minutes before the service was set to begin, a security guard spotted her. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, wet hair plastered to her face, wearing a dirty yellow dress, no shoes, no parents, just standing at the chapel door. The guard approached her. "Hey, sweetie, where's your mom?" She didn't answer. She just stared at the chapel. And then she started walking inside. People turned. Whispers spread. "Who is that? Did someone bring a child? Where are her parents?" Elena Ashford looked up, confused. Daniel's face tightened. The girl didn't stop. She walked straight toward the coffin, slow and deliberate, like she was being pulled. And then she stopped, right in front of it, and she started to cry. At first it was soft, a whimper. But then it grew, louder, louder, until she was screaming. Her tiny fists pounded on the wood. "No, no, no!" She pointed at the coffin, then at her chest, then back at the coffin, like she was trying to tell them something. The guests froze. Elena stood, her voice shaking. "Someone, please, get her out of here." A security guard moved toward the girl, but the moment he touched her shoulder, she collapsed, pressed her ear against the coffin, and went silent, listening. What did she hear? Why was she the only one who knew? And what happened when they finally opened that coffin? Stay with us. For 5 seconds no one moved. The little girl's ear was flat against the mahogany wood, her eyes closed, her body perfectly still, like she was listening to something only she could hear. Elena Ashford's hand covered her mouth. Her daughter Sophie gripped her arm tighter. Daniel stood near the front row, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked on the girl. "Get her away from there," he said, low, controlled. The security guard reached for her again, but before he could touch her, she gasped. Her eyes shot open, and she started screaming again. But this time, it was different. This time, she wasn't just crying. She was pointing. She pointed at the coffin, then at her own chest, then back at the coffin, over and over. "He's there! He's there!" Her words were barely coherent, toddler babble mixed with sobs, but the panic in her voice, that was real. One of the guests, an older woman in the third row, whispered to her husband, "What is she saying?" "I don't know. Something about inside?" Elena took a step forward, her voice trembling. "Sweetheart, please, you need to." But the girl ignored her. She threw herself at the coffin. Her small fists pounded the wood. Again. 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 "Open! Open! Open!" The sound echoed through the chapel. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Daniel's face darkened. "Remove her, now." The security guard grabbed her under the arms, lifted her off the ground. She kicked, screamed, her voice raw and desperate. "No, he's in there, he's in there." And then something happened, something no one could explain. The lights flickered, just for a second, but everyone felt it. A low hum, like electricity surging through the walls. The security guard froze. The girl went limp in his arms. And then, a sound, faint, so faint that most people thought they imagined it. But Sophie, Victor's 8-year-old daughter, heard it. She turned toward the coffin, her eyes wide. "Mommy, did you hear that?" Elena looked down at her. "Hear what, baby?" "The beeping." Elena's face went pale. "What beeping?" Sophie pointed at the coffin. From there, the room went silent. Everyone strained to listen, and then they heard it. Beep, pause, beep, pause, beep. Soft, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. At first people thought it was a phone, someone's watch alarm, a medical device. But the sound wasn't coming from the audience. It was coming from inside the coffin. One of the guests, a man in his 60s, Dr. Alan Pruitt, a retired cardiologist, stood up. He walked slowly toward the front. That's a cardiac monitor." Elena stared at him. "What?" "That sound. It's a heart monitor. I'd know it anywhere." Daniel stepped forward, his voice sharp. "That's impossible. It's probably interference from—" "No." Dr. Pruitt was already at the coffin. He pressed his ear against it. His face changed. "Oh my God." Elena's voice cracked. "What? What is it?" Dr. Pruitt looked up at her, his hands shaking. "There's a pulse." The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, someone screamed. Elena stumbled backward. Sophie started crying, and Daniel, his face went white, not with shock, but with fear. "Open it! Someone open the coffin! Call an ambulance!" The voices overlapped. Panic spread like wildfire. But Daniel didn't move. He stood frozen, his fists clenched at his sides. Elena grabbed his arm. "Daniel, open it, now!" He didn't respond. Dr. Pruitt didn't wait. He reached for the latch on the coffin. Daniel's hand shot out, grabbed his wrist. "Don't." The air grew still. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Daniel. Dr. Pruitt's voice was cold. "Excuse me? I said don't. You'll disturb—" "Disturb what?" "Your brother might be alive in there." Daniel's jaw tightened. His eyes darted to the security guards, then to the door, like he was calculating something. Elena's voice broke. "Daniel, what did you do?" He didn't answer. Dr. Pruitt shoved his hand away and unlatched the coffin. The lid creaked open, and what they saw inside made everyone step back. Victor Ashford lay inside, pale and motionless. But his eyes were open, just barely, and they were moving, side to side, slowly, like he was trying to see, trying to focus. Someone gasped. "He's alive." Dr. Pruitt leaned in, pressed 2 fingers to Victor's neck. He waited 5 seconds, 10, and then, "I've got a pulse, weak, but it's there," Elena screamed. Her hands flew to her mouth. Sophie buried her face in her mother's dress. The little girl, still in the guard's arms, stopped crying. She just stared, like she'd known all along. Dr. Pruitt barked orders. "Someone call 911, now. We need paramedics here in under 10 minutes or he's not going to make it." One of the guests fumbled for their phone. But Daniel, he was already walking toward the door. Dr. Pruitt noticed. "Daniel, where the hell are you going?" Daniel didn't turn around. "I need to make a call. Your brother is dying and you need to make a call?" Daniel stopped, his back still turned, and for just a moment, his face twisted, not with grief, with rage. And then he walked out. The paramedics arrived in 8 minutes. They rushed into the chapel with a stretcher, oxygen, a defibrillator. Dr. Pruitt explained the situation as they worked. Possible toxin-induced paralysis, mimics death, tetrodotoxin or something similar. He's been under for 48 hours. We need to get him to a hospital now. They lifted Victor out of the coffin. His body was stiff. His skin was cold, but his chest was moving. Shallow breaths, barely there, but breathing. They loaded him onto the stretcher. Elena followed. Sophie held her hand. As they wheeled him past the little girl, something strange happened. Victor's eyes, barely open, turned toward her, and for just a second, he blinked, once, like he was saying thank you. The girl didn't cry, didn't speak. She just watched as they carried him away. And then, she was gone. By the time the ambulance pulled away, someone noticed. The little girl, she was gone. The security guard who'd been holding her looked around. Confused. Where did she go? No one knew. 1 second she was there. The next, vanished. No footprints in the rain, no sounds of a car leaving, nothing. Elena asked the staff. Did anyone see where she went? No one had. Did anyone recognize her? Know her name? Not a single person at that funeral knew who she was, or how she'd gotten there, or why she was the only one who knew Victor was still alive. Victor was rushed to Manhattan General Hospital, the same hospital that had pronounced him dead 2 days earlier. The ER doctors worked fast. Blood tests, toxicology screens, 4 fluids. Within an hour they had answers. Tetrodotoxin. A neurotoxin so rare most doctors never see it in their careers. It shuts down the nervous system, mimics death almost perfectly. But here's the thing. It's reversible, if caught in time. And Victor? He'd been caught just in time. By 6 p.m. his vitals stabilized. By 8 p.m. he was breathing on his own. By midnight, he opened his eyes. Elena was there when he woke up. She grabbed his hand. "Victor! Oh my God! Victor, can you hear me?" He blinked. Slowly. His voice was a rasp. "I heard everything." Elena's tears fell harder. "What?" "I was awake the whole time. I heard the funeral, the prayers. I felt the coffin close." His hand squeezed hers. "I thought I was going to die in there." Elena sobbed. "Who did this to you?" Victor's eyes closed. His jaw tightened. And when he opened them again, his voice was cold. "My brother?" Elena froze. "What?" "Daniel. He poisoned me." Her hand flew to her mouth. "How do you—" "I saw him. He was in my office. I didn't think anything of it, but he touched my water bottle. Just for a second." Victor's voice cracked. "He knew what he was doing. He wanted me dead and buried. Before anyone could ask questions." Elena stood, her voice shaking with fury. "I'm calling the police right now." But Victor grabbed her wrist. Wait. Victor, he tried to kill you. I know, but we need proof, real proof. Or he'll walk." Elena stared at him. "Then what do we do?" Victor's eyes hardened. "We let him think he won, and then we bury him." Daniel was home when he got the call. A nurse from the hospital. "Mr. Ashford, I'm calling about your brother." Daniel's hand tightened around the glass. "Yes?" He's awake, stable. The doctors say he's going to make a full recovery." Daniel said nothing. The nurse continued. "It's a miracle, really. If that little girl hadn't—" Daniel hung up. He stared at his phone, and then he hurled the glass across the room. It shattered against the wall. He stood there, breathing hard, his mind racing. Victor was alive. The plan had failed. And worse, someone new, a little girl, who'd appeared out of nowhere, who'd heard what no one else could, who'd saved his brother's life. Daniel picked up his phone and dialed a number. A man's voice answered. "It's me," Daniel said, his voice low. "We have a problem." The morning after Victor woke up, the doctors ran test after test, blood work, brain scans, neurological exams. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Dr. Rachel Kim, the lead toxicologist, stood at the foot of Victor's bed with his chart. "Mr. Ashford, you shouldn't be alive." Victor managed a weak smile. "I've been told—" "No, you don't understand. The amount of tetrodotoxin in your system, it should have killed you, or at minimum caused permanent brain damage, but you're fine, cognitively intact, motor functions returning. It's—" She trailed off. Victor finished for her. "A miracle?" Dr. Kim nodded slowly. "That's the only word for it." But Victor wasn't thinking about miracles. He was thinking about revenge. By noon, the police arrived. Detective Sarah Mendez, NYPD Major Crimes Unit. She'd seen attempted murders before. But this was different. She sat down beside Victor's bed. "Mr. Ashford, I need you to walk me through everything. From the beginning." Victor took a breath, and he told her everything. How Daniel had visited that morning, how his brother had lingered, touched the bottle, just for a second. How Victor hadn't thought anything of it at the time. But now it made sense. Detective Mendez wrote everything down. "Did anyone else see your brother in your office that day?" "My assistant, Jennifer. She buzzed him in around 9:30 a.m. "How long was he there?" 5 minutes, maybe less. We talked about the quarterly earnings report. Nothing unusual. He left. And then—" Victor's voice dropped. "4 hours later, I collapsed." Detective Mendez looked up. "And you're certain it was him? Who else had motive? Who else benefits from my death?" She nodded, closed her notebook. "We'll bring him in for questioning. In the meantime, I need to ask you something." "What?" "The little girl. At your funeral. Do you know who she was?" Victor shook his head. "I've never seen her before in my life, and yet she's the one who saved you." Victor stared out the window. "I know." Detective Mendez leaned forward. "Mr. Ashford, in my 15 years as a detective, I've seen a lot of strange things. But this? A 5-year-old child showing up at a private funeral, with no identification, no family, no explanation, and somehow knowing you were alive when trained medical professionals declared you dead?" She paused. "That's not luck. That's not coincidence." Victor looked at her. "Then what is it?" She didn't answer, because she didn't have one. The following day, Daniel was brought in for questioning. He came voluntarily. No arrest, no charges, just questions. He sat across from Detective Mendez in a gray suit. His lawyer, a man named Howard Finch, sat beside him. Daniel smiled. "Detective, I'm happy to help in any way I can, but I have to say, I'm confused about why I'm here." Detective Mendez didn't smile back. "Your brother says you poisoned him." Daniel's smile didn't falter. "My brother was in a coma for 2 days. He was buried alive. I imagine his memory is unreliable." "He says you visited him the morning of October 12th. Is that true?" "Of course. I visit Victor's office all the time. We work together." "And did you touch anything while you were there? His desk, his files, his water bottle?" Daniel's eyes flickered. "Just for a second. I don't recall." "You don't recall?" "Detective, it was a brief conversation. I was there for 5 minutes. I don't remember every surface I touched." Detective Mendez leaned forward. "Mr. Ashford, your brother's toxicology report shows lethal levels of tetrodotoxin in his system. A rare poison, nearly impossible to obtain. Do you know what tetrodotoxin is?" Daniel's lawyer cut in. "My client is a pharmaceutical executive. He knows hundreds of chemical compounds. That doesn't mean... I'm asking him. Daniel met her gaze. Yes, detective, I know what it is. It's a neurotoxin, derived from pufferfish. We studied it briefly in one of our research divisions years ago, but we abandoned the project. Too dangerous, too unstable, and yet someone got their hands on it. Daniel shrugged, clearly, and used it on your brother. Apparently, the same brother who cut you out of his will 3 months ago. The room went silent. Daniel's smile finally faded. That's what this is about. You think I killed Victor over money? No, then who did? Daniel leaned back in his chair. I have no idea, detective, but if I were you, I'd start looking at his real enemies. Dr. Marcus Chen, Natalie Graves. Victor destroyed a lot of lives. Maybe one of them decided to return the favor. Detective Mendez stared at him. We'll be in touch, Mr. Ashford. Daniel stood, buttoned his jacket. I'm sure you will. And then he walked out, calm, confident, like a man who knew he'd already won. Back at the hospital, Elena told Victor about the interrogation. He listened in silence. When she finished, he shook his head. He's too smart. He covered his tracks. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no proof. Elena's voice broke. Then what do we do? Just let him walk? Victor looked at her. No, we find the girl. Elena blinked. What? The little girl. From the funeral. She's the only witness. The only one who knew I was alive. If we can find her, maybe she saw something. Maybe she knows something. Victor, she's 5 years old, and no one even knows who she is. I don't care. I need to find her. Elena stared at him. Why? What do you think she'll tell you? Victor's jaw tightened. I don't know, but she saved my life, and I need to know why. Over the next 3 days, Victor launched a search. He hired private investigators, posted photos from the funeral's security footage online, offered a $50,000 reward for information. The story went viral. Miracle child saves billionaire from being buried alive. Who is the mystery girl who heard a heartbeat no one else could? The footage showed her clearly, yellow dress, wet hair, bare feet, but no one came forward. No parents, no relatives, no neighbors. It was like she didn't exist. One investigator told Victor, Sir, we've checked every database, missing children, foster care, adoption records, hospital births. Nothing. No child matching her description has been reported anywhere in the state. Victor stared at the photo. Then where did she come from? The investigator had no answer, and neither did anyone else. 1 week after Victor's collapse, he sat alone in his hospital room. The doctor said he could go home in 2 days. Physically, he was recovering, but mentally, he couldn't stop thinking about her. The little girl, her cries, her desperation, the way she'd pressed her ear to the coffin, like she'd heard something no one else could. He replayed the footage over and over, and then he noticed something he'd missed before, in the video, right before she collapsed against the coffin. She wasn't just crying, she was singing, faint, almost inaudible, but it was there, a melody. Victor turned up the volume, listened closer. It was a lullaby, one he'd heard before, and then he remembered. His mother used to sing it to him, when he was a child, when he couldn't sleep. Hush now, little one, the night is not so long. Victor's blood ran cold. How did she know that song? His mother had been dead for 20 years, and that lullaby, it was something she'd made up, something personal, something no one else knew. So how did a little girl he'd never met know the exact same song? He called Detective Mendez immediately. I need you to look into something. Mr. Ashford, it's 11 p.m. The girl, from the funeral. I need you to check if there's any connection between her and my mother. Then there was silence. Your mother passed away in 2003. How could? I don't know. But she was singing a song only my mother knew. A lullaby she made up. So either that girl knows my family, or something else is going on. Detective Mendez paused. I'll look into it. And one more thing. What? Check the security footage from my office building. October 12th. Morning. I want to see everyone who entered the building between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. We already checked that. Your brother was the only... Check again. And then he hung up. Detective Mendez stayed up all night reviewing the footage, frame by frame, and at 3:47 a.m., she found it. October 12th, 9:12 a.m., 18 minutes before Daniel entered Victor's office. A man walked into the building, tall, mid-50s, baseball cap, sunglasses. He didn't check in at the front desk, didn't sign the visitor log. He walked straight to the elevator, pressed the button for the 22nd floor. Victor's floor. Detective Mendez zoomed in on his face. The sunglasses made it hard to see, but there was something familiar about him. She ran the image through facial recognition, and when the results came back, her stomach dropped. The man in the footage was Dr. Marcus Chen, Victor's former partner, the man he'd destroyed, the man who'd threatened him, and the man who had access to tetrodotoxin. She arrived at the hospital at 6 a.m. Victor was awake, sitting up. She didn't waste time. Dr. Marcus Chen was in your building the morning you collapsed. Victor's face went pale. What? 9:12 a.m. He took the elevator to your floor. We don't have footage of him in your office, but he was there. He had to be. There's more. We pulled his financials. 3 weeks ago, he made a $20,000 cash withdrawal, no explanation. And 2 days before that, he was in Japan. Victor's eyes narrowed. Japan? Where tetrodotoxin is most commonly found. Pufferfish restaurants. Black market dealers. Victor's fists clenched. It was him. We're bringing him in now. The next day, Dr. Marcus Chen was arrested at his home in Brooklyn. They found traces of tetrodotoxin in his lab. Vials, syringes, notes. He didn't resist, didn't deny it. He just smiled. And when they asked him why, he said, Victor Ashford stole my life. So I stole his. He was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and illegal possession of a biological toxin. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. But there was still one question no one could answer. The little girl. Who was she, and how did she know? Detective Mendez couldn't let it go. She'd solved the poisoning, arrested the suspect, closed the case on paper. But every night when she went home, she kept remembering that little girl, the yellow dress, the bare feet, the way she'd pressed her ear against that coffin like she was listening to a frequency no human being should be able to hear. It didn't sit right. Nothing about it sat right. So she kept digging, alone, on her own time, because some questions don't let you sleep until you answer them. She started with the footage, frame by frame. She'd watched it dozens of times already, but this time she wasn't looking at the girl. She was looking at everything else, the guests, the staff, the grounds. Because someone had to have seen something. Someone had to know how a barefoot toddler in a soaking wet yellow dress ended up inside a private funeral on a gated estate in the Hamptons. The estate had 6 security cameras covering every entrance, the front gate, the side garden, the chapel entrance, the parking area. Mendez pulled every angle, watched each one in real time, and then she stopped, rewound, watched again. Camera 3, the side garden entrance, 1:54 p.m. 4 minutes before the girl appeared at the chapel door. The camera showed an empty garden path, rain falling, nobody there. And then, a flicker, like a glitch in the recording, one single frame. Mendez paused it, zoomed in. In that one frame, there was a figure standing at the garden gate, small, barely 3 feet tall, in a yellow dress. But what made Mendez's blood run cold was the gate itself. It was locked, from the inside, a heavy iron gate with a mechanical deadbolt, the kind you need a key to open from either direction. But in the footage, the gate was still locked. The girl was simply on the other side of it, inside the garden, without the gate ever opening. Mendez drove to the estate that evening, stood at the side garden gate, examined it. The deadbolt was solid, no signs of tampering, no bent iron, no scratches, nothing to suggest anyone had forced it open. She measured the gap between the gate bars, 6 inches, not wide enough for a child to squeeze through, not even close. She stood there in the rain for a long time, thinking. And then she called Victor. Mr. Ashford, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Victor sat up straighter. What is it? Does the name Grace mean anything to you? Then there was silence, long silence. Why? Mendez frowned. I'm not sure yet, but when the security guard tried to remove the girl from the chapel, one of the guests said they heard her say something, just once, before she went quiet and pressed her ear to the coffin. What did she say? Mendez looked at her notes. The guest wrote it down, said she couldn't be sure because it was so soft, but she thought the girl whispered. Mendez paused. She whispered, I promised, Mama. Victor said nothing. The silence on the phone stretched so long that Mendez thought the call had dropped. Mr. Ashford, his voice came back, barely above a whisper. My mother's name was Catherine Ashford. Yes, I know. She died in 2003. I know that too. Another pause. Detective, I need to tell you something I haven't told anyone. Mendez sat down on a nearby bench. I'm listening. Victor told her everything. The old photograph, the white infant coffin in the corner, the name on the back written in his mother's handwriting. Grace Catherine Ashford, January 14, 1970. Born sleeping. Mendez listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. You never knew about her? Never. My parents never mentioned a word. I found the photo by accident going through old boxes last week. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. And the lullaby. The one the girl was singing. You're certain it was the same one your mother used to sing to you? Word for word. Note for note. Detective, that song never existed outside our family. My mother made it up. I used to ask her where she learned it, and she'd always say the same thing. What did she say? Victor closed his eyes. She'd say, I wrote it for someone very special, someone I'm keeping safe. The line went silent. Neither of them spoke, because neither of them had words for what they were both thinking. Finally, Mendez exhaled. Mr. Ashford, I'm going to need to look into something. I'll call you back. What are you looking into? Something I should have looked into from the beginning. She hung up and drove to the county records office. Mendez spent 3 hours in the records office. Birth certificates, death certificates, burial permits. Going back to 1970, she found Grace's death certificate easily enough. Stillborn. January 14, 1970, St. Mary's Hospital. But the burial permit? That's where it got complicated. The original permit listed Greenwood Cemetery as the burial site. Standard, expected, but attached to it, a handwritten amendment, filed 6 days later, January 20, 1970, signed by Victor's father, James Ashford. It read, Family request, remains transferred to private property. Ashford Estate, 14 Maple Ridge Road, East Hampton, New York. Interred beneath the eastern oak tree in the garden. Per the wishes of the mother, Catherine Ashford, who requests the child remain close to home. Mendez stared at it. Beneath the eastern oak tree. She'd walked past that tree when she visited the estate. She'd thought nothing of it, just a tree. But it wasn't just a tree, it was a grave. A 53-year-old grave, unmarked to the outside world, but known to the family, or at least to one member of the family. Mendez called Victor on the way. He was waiting at the door when she arrived. He looked pale, like he hadn't slept. They walked together through the garden in silence, past the fountain, past the rose beds, until they reached the eastern side of the estate. The oak tree, it was enormous, ancient, its branches spread wide like arms. Victor slowed. Something about it made him hesitate. Like his body knew something his mind wasn't ready to accept. Mendez walked ahead. Crouched in the grass, moved aside a thick clump of overgrown moss near the base of the tree, and there it was. A small flat stone, half buried in the earth, weather-worn, decades old, but the inscription still visible. Victor knelt beside it, read it slowly. Grace Catherine Ashford, January 14, 1970, our angel, safe in our arms forever. Victor's hand went to his mouth. His shoulders shook. He didn't speak for a long time, just knelt there in the wet grass. One hand pressed against the stone, like he was reaching for someone he'd never had the chance to meet. Mendez stood quietly behind him, giving him space. Finally, Victor looked up at her. His voice barely held together. "She was here the whole time, my whole life. Right here. And I never knew." Mendez crouched beside him. "Your mother knew. She visited this tree, Victor. I found journal entries at the records office. Personal documents your father filed when he updated his estate papers in 1998. There was a note he included. He wrote that Catherine came to this tree every single night for 30 years. Rain or shine, she'd bring flowers, sit with Grace, talk to her, sing to her." Victor's tears fell freely. The lullaby, yes, she sang it here. Every night, Victor looked at the stone. So Grace heard it her whole life. Every word of it. Victor placed both hands flat on the stone and whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't know you. I'm sorry it took this long." The wind moved through the oak tree above them, slow, gentle, like a sigh. Mendez looked up at the branches, and for just a moment, she could have sworn she heard something, faint, carried on the wind, a melody. "Hush now, little one. The night is not so long." She looked at Victor. He heard it too. His eyes were wide, his face still. They stayed like that for a long moment. Two people kneeling in the dark, listening to something that had no explanation, that couldn't be explained, that didn't need to be. 3 days later, Victor called a family meeting, just Elena and Sophie. He sat them down in the study, and he told them everything. The photograph, the grave, the records, the lullaby on the wind. Elena cried. Sophie listened with the serious face of a child trying very hard to understand something much bigger than herself. When Victor finished, Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at her father. "So, Aunt Grace saved you?" Victor nodded. "I think she did." Sophie thought about it. "Because she loves you, yes, even though you never met." "Yes." Sophie nodded, with the simple certainty that only children possess. "That makes sense." Victor laughed. The first real laugh since all of this started. "It does?" "Yes, because love doesn't need to meet someone to be real. I loved the puppy in the shelter before we even took him home." Victor pulled his daughter into a hug and held her for a very long time. Elena reached over, took his hand, and the three of them sat together in the quiet of the study, surrounded by everything they almost lost, grateful for everything they still had. 1 week later, Victor held a small ceremony at the oak tree. No cameras, no press, no spectacle, just family. He'd commissioned a proper grave marker, white marble, simple, elegant. It read, "Grace Catherine Ashford, January 14th, 1970, beloved daughter. Beloved sister, you were loved before we knew you, and you saved us before we deserved it. Rest now, little one. We'll find you under the oak tree." They placed white lilies at the base. Sophie drew a picture of a little girl in a yellow dress and tucked it under the stone, and Victor stood there with his family around him. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like the most powerful man in the room. He felt like the luckiest. Months after his recovery, Victor agreed to speak publicly for the first time, not about the poisoning, not about Chen, not about the empire or the money or the trial. He spoke about Grace. A reporter asked him, "Mr. Ashford, do you believe she was real? Do you believe a child who died 53 years ago came back and saved your life?" Victor was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I believe what I know. I know I was dying. I know the doctors had declared me dead. I know that no one at that funeral had any reason to check that coffin. And I know that a little girl appeared out of nowhere, with no family, no name, no explanation. And she didn't stop. She didn't give up. She fought for me when no one else was fighting. Was she Grace? I can't prove it, but I know this. When I was lying in that coffin, completely paralyzed, completely alone, I heard her crying. And in that darkness, it sounded exactly like the voice of someone who loved me, completely, without condition, the way only family can. So you ask me if she was real?" He looked directly at the camera. "She was the most real thing that has ever happened to me." Detective Mendez officially closed the case in November 2023. Attempted murder. 1 suspect arrested. One conviction, case closed. But before she filed the final report, she added a single handwritten note to the bottom of the last page. It read, "Identity of female child, age approximately 2 to 3 years. Present at funeral of Victor Ashford on October 14, 2023. Identity unknown. Origin unknown. No match found in any national, state, or local database. No family came forward. No witnesses to arrival or departure. Investigation ongoing. Note from investigating officer. Some cases have answers. This one has something better. It has a miracle." She signed it, closed the folder, and never spoke about it again. So here is what we know. Victor Ashford was poisoned, buried alive, left to die by someone who wanted him gone. And he should have died, by every medical measure, every logical calculation. He should not have survived, but he did, because of a child no one could identify, who came from nowhere, who knew a song no living person had any right to know, who heard a heartbeat through 2 inches of mahogany wood, who fought and screamed and refused to give up until someone listened. Call her what you want, a ghost, an angel, a miracle, a sister who kept a promise to a mother 50 years in the ground. It doesn't matter what you call her. What matters is what she did. She came back for her brother. She found him in the dark, and she brought him home. Every evening now, Victor visits the tree. Sometimes he brings flowers. Sometimes he brings Sophie. Sometimes he just comes alone. And he stands there in the quiet, and he talks to her, his sister, the one he never got to grow up with, never got to argue with or laugh with or call on the phone, the sister who was taken before she ever had the chance to stay. And sometimes, when the wind moves through those branches just right, he swears he can feel her, right there beside him, and he says the same thing every time. "I know, Grace, I know, because whatever she is, wherever she is, one thing is certain, she is loved, completely, finally, the way she always deserved to be. Before you go, we want to ask you something. Have you ever felt a presence you couldn't explain? A moment where something, or someone, seemed to reach through the impossible, just to remind you that you weren't alone? Leave it in the comments, because if this story taught us anything, it's that the people who love us never truly leave. They stay close, they wait, and when we need them most, they find a way back. Hit the like button if this story moved you. Subscribe so you never miss another story like this one, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Until next time, remember, you are never as alone as you think.